Hello, and welcome to another episode of Myths and Stories, a Destiny 2 lore podcast. Today, we are covering a new subject. It is a fire team known as the Kentarch-3. I always thought that Kentarch-3 was like a reference to an EXO, obviously because of the 3 moniker at the end of it. But no, this is a fire team that did a thing, as all fire teams do. This one specifically did some stuff in the Black Garden. And the book we're going to start with has a fun name, and I'm going to try to screw it up instantly. Myth, I'm just going to try. Menemus, damn it. I'm just going to give you all the myth right now because I'm going to screw this up.
Yeah, so the book we are starting with, to kind of ease our way into this journey, is going to focus around a particular member of that fire team, by the name of Lisbon 13. And at the time that we are reading through this lore book, they are a member of the Hidden. Uh, and the book comes to us from the Witch Queen, and it is spelt very strangely, but pronounced, because I looked it up, Nemozine. Uh, we're, and immediately we're like, that word is weird.
Yeah.
Uh, it must mean something. So did a little bit of digging on that, and yes, it does. In ways that will become very clear as we read through this book, and then some of the entries that are associated with it outside of the lore book. Nemozine is a name, specifically referring back to Greek mythology. It is a name attributed to the goddess of memory. Uh,
Seems fitting for what we're about to read.
exactly. So, with that in mind, this book named quite literally after a personification of memory.
And it's
Uh,
not pronounced Menemone.
no,
Anemone. And fuck.
don't hurt
God,
yourself.
I'm not going to. I quit.
um, but yeah, so this book is all revolving around the altars of reflection within the Witch Queen, which, for those that have played the campaign, the altars of reflection are where we bring the various objects to view the memories, and unwittingly give those memories to Savathun. But the altar can be used, can continue to be used even after the events of the campaign. And because it is such an intriguing and powerful place, and presumably tied to darkness, because memory, um, it is something that is deemed uh, valuable enough to explore and study. And so Ikora dispatches the Hidden. Specifically, the agent that gets dispatched is Lisbon 13. And we're going to read through their reports from Lisbon about what they find at the altars of reflection, as they study it and experiment with it. And about halfway through, we're going to cut over to some different lore entries, for reasons that will become clear as we read through. And then we'll this will probably be 2, maybe 3 episodes, and we'll cut back for the last half to catch the rest of the book. But with that being said, we're going to start chapter 1, which is Altars of Reflection Dispatch. And it begins with the heading very similar to a lot of like mission briefings from the Hidden. Access restricted, decryption key, bunch of numbers, IKO 006. Ikora is decrypting this report. Um, uh, Agents, Lin 357. Subject, Altars of Reflection Dispatch. And it is a numbered kind of paragraphs. And it goes like this. Number 1. Regarding the power known as deep sight and its uses within VIP 7282's throne world. Some Guardians have already used this power to access secret pockets of space. Hidden agents have dubbed them altars of reflection for now. There, the invocation of deep sight, in concert with significant objects, has enabled us to view memories belonging to 7282. Number 2. Access to this power requires spending time with the relic, and subsequently in one of the pyramids. Long-term exposure to darkness in this manner carries inherent risk, and the process is non-trivial. However, in the interest of learning everything possible about this space and the relevant VIP, certain chances must be taken. Considering the sensitive nature of the topic, reports should be directed subject to the attention of IKO 006 only. Number 3. So far, it is estimated that Guardians have been able to view memories that 7282 wants. This supposition is held by 7282's specific and personal input on the memories in question. But why these memories? This remains a worthwhile question to answer in order to understand 7282's larger goal. Hidden Agent LIN 357 was dispatched in full understanding of requisite risks to determine the following as possible: limits and potential of physical space, applicability of other items and memories, the span of 7282's attention to the mentioned spaces, possibility for use of deep sight outside of alter parameters, and possibility for use of alter parameters with other applications. Number 5, LIN 357 is also to assess potential danger in continuing and encouraging Guardian access to and use of alter spaces. Message ends. And that is chapter 1. Uh, Pretty plain.
So yeah, pretty straightforward. Just a typical mission briefing between a hidden and Ikora, um, pertaining to this space. Like like Myth was saying, these altars are reflections. Throughout the Witch Queen's campaign, Savathun was using these to kind of like feed memories back to her, and we know now because she was trying to test like what is the downside of getting your memories back after being rezzed. Again, these are all like different plot points of her like ultimate plan that we still have no idea how many like little fingers she had in all these little bits. But I guess the main thing here is the mention that all of these memories are uh, Sabathun wants these memories. They're. It doesn't. I always thought that like the altars of reflection, like you could just go and bring an item and be like, here, remember this, like figure it out type thing. Like use the deep sight, trigger the memory of the thing, and kind of work through it. Um, but here it's seeming that, or at least Lisbon's reporting here, that the memories that are at the altars are specifically ones that Savathun wants.
Well, those are the only ones that have been observed at this time. And that's one of the questions that they're hoping to answer is like,
Ah, okay.
is it applicable to bring other items and experience other memories here?
Oh, sure,
That's
sure, sure. He
part of
says
this
that's part four. Yeah, yeah.
investigation. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. And in case it wasn't clear, 72 VIP 7282 is Savathun. So whenever you hear that number, just replace it with Savathun. But yeah, so pretty standard, just like, hey, this is the goal, this is the mission, these are the observed things that we know about it. Uh, and, Ikora sends Lisbon there. So that brings us then to chapter 2, which is Altars of Reflection Assessment. And this, where the previous one seemed to be kind of a um, mission briefing in general that maybe wasn't authored by either person. This one seems to be authored from Lisbon, being sent to Ikora specifically. And it goes like this. I arrived on site and made my way into the altar space. It doesn't appear to have changed much, if at all, from earlier provided telemetry. As predicted, there were barriers to access. Several of the lucent brood obstructed my passage and were subsequently dispatched without much trouble. Additionally, the same complication as previously reported blocked the way: hive runes. Parsing their nature and repetition of specific patterns was required to gain full access to the altar. On the topic of the presented resistance, there were significantly fewer hive defenders than could have been mustered, given intelligence on available forces. Based on the token nature of this resistance and the fact that VIP 7282 surely knows that Guardians have been here, it can be assumed that the defense is not a sincere attempt to keep us out. Historical precedent exists for setting a guard on a location or item to make it appear more attractive. Precedent also exists for opening the way for Guardians to participate in the Hive sword logic. I do not know yet, or I do not yet have reason to believe that this is taking place here, especially given the severance of Savathun's connection to the worm gods that have otherwise led her species. But it does not pay to be incautious around the hive. Once appropriate precautions were taken against any further incursions, I deployed sensors to record what data is possible, focusing on the central altar and its exterior boundaries. Simultaneously, it was necessary to assess the available space for myself. Impressions follow. It is more aesthetically appealing than we usually associate with the hive. Only the structures bear vague resemblance to those on Luna. The colors are pleasing, far removed from the scarlet and rot, and the area lacks jagged edges or significant quantities of bone. Structurally, it is a space clearly built to highlight the central area, and indeed, it draws one to the altar itself. All told, in agriculture architecture alone, the creator demonstrates a clear evolution, presumably mirroring her own. On the topic of structure, although the available space does not appear to have walls, there is a definite boundary. Matter grows foggy, and there is a strong sense of pushback when moving away from the center. Initially, I believed this to be a function of the architecture, but significant willpower was required to force myself to look further into testing the concept. That alone suggests it should be investigated more. Conscious of the bias in doing so, I am marking it for later experimentation, as it would involve straying from the central objective. Further data forthcoming. Message end for this chapter.
So yeah, again, more again, very report driven. Very. That's that is one thing that it just reminds me so much of the military. It's everything is very straightforward in a report. It's all very, there's not a lot of fluff to it. I say that having knowing I've definitely put fluff in some of my reports, just to make myself look smarter. Lisbon's a very straightforward guardian here. He's very much like, look, this is the space. This is where we're testing it out. There's he talks about how different the space here is. And again, this is still an explorable space in game right now. So
Mhm.
if you wanted to go check these out, like you go to the Savathun's Throne World on the main director map, and then there's just little sections that'll say Altar Reflection, and then there's usually a name associated with it or like a type of reflection associated, like causality or whatever. I don't remember all the ones that are associated with them. But when you go there, it's very much the Lucent Hive area here. It's very white. It's very pretty. It's very different than what the typical hive architecture is. And then of course he explains the process of getting in. Same process we use. There's sets of runes. They have a little puzzle. You decipher the puzzle. Like shoot the wrong looking set of runes. There's 10 sets of runes and 3 of them are incorrect. Well, shoot those 3 and then you get through the door. And then of course he does bring mention to the amount of guard that's here, and it's very easily dispatched. Uh, but again, bringing that idea of like why place, like the whole reason to put a guard here is to like bring attention to it. Like
Right.
if something, if X is being guarded, well, there's something in X that needs to be guarded. So therefore, I should poke it and mess with it. But I think that's more like Savathun's, like she knows the curiosity of a guardian.
Yeah.
And is like, if I put a guard here, they're gonna want to kill it, and they're gonna want to poke at it. Like, so good on her. Like she did. Like again,
She was
she
right.
knows what she's doing. Yeah, she
Yeah.
knows exactly what she's doing. Most of the time. The times that she doesn't know what she's doing, she just claims that was part of the plan anyway.
Yeah.
That just helps her. So yeah, like I said, not much here. The one interesting thing is down here at the bottom, where they I have to laugh. Did they canonically explain turnbacks
It seems like
sections?
it. Yeah.
Down at the bottom, he's like, "There's a definite boundary. Like it grows foggy, and like I get pushed back when I try to get towards that area." Like, they just canonize turn back zones. Okay.
Yeah, and their explanation, at least for this space, seems to almost be this like the altar has some level of like psychic attraction that
Yeah.
makes it's less about like, as we experience in game, you go too far and it just kills you off and you respawn. For them, they're explaining it more as a like you can't pull yourself away
Yeah.
from the altar, past like a certain distance. Like it forces you to refocus on it.
Which of course then triggers Lisbon to think like, oh well, that means I must push further past this.
Right.
I've got to go past the boundary.
Right. But then they're like, but that is not the point of this mission, so that needs to be experimented with later.
Yep.
But yeah. So yeah, still very much in that like clinical report structure. We'll see that probably for the next 1 or 2 as well before things start getting a little juicier. But it is, kind of to help us picture and visualize the space and also see what the hidden's process is on trying to, experiment and catalog a new place like this.
They're very thorough. I'll
Yes.
definitely go in that. Like that's every it again. I think of it very militaristically. Like it. Though I know there's. I have to laugh when I say things like that because I know there's times in my military life that I was just like, I don't care. I'm not putting that much detail into this shit. It doesn't matter. But and I know that there's listeners out there that have been in the military or are currently in the military. They're like, for a fact you didn't put that much. I know. I got you. I see you out there. Yeah, the hidden are very thorough anytime they investigate anything.
Yeah. But yeah, so that brings us to the 3rd chapter, the 3rd report, which is Altars of Reflection Control. And again, this is a report from Lisbon to Ikora. And it says, with the perimeter secured and all sensors ready for analysis, there is no immediate further obstacle to the initial experiments with Deep Sight. On Vanguard authorization, I have borrowed one of the existing artifacts that has been used to produce and view Savathun's memories. The item is a shard of the crystal that Savathun used recently as a protective measure. In summary, following the known and established process, there is no deviation from what was previously reported. The memory of Savathun's death and subsequent acquisition of light played back as expected, identical in every beat. This is not unexpected, and the recording, etc., have been made largely for by archival purposes. Subsequent repetitions of the same process revealed additional words from Savathun. Perhaps foolishly, I replied to portions of her dialogue that seemed to request a response. However, there was no explicit answer. I believe it is safe to conclude that there is no awareness of hers here, and that what is heard is likely a recording, coded to this specific memory and or object. Her use of this method to influence and sow doubt is not unexpected. As a test, I used the crystal item to invoke deep sight in the same fashion I'd used previously, this time with the intent of viewing something different. There are plentiful records of Savathun's interactions with the Vanguard and the Wreath personnel around the larger crystal that this piece was retrieved from. However, none of those were viewable. The same item only allowed viewing of the same memory, suggesting a permanent association. I have some additional analysis planned to confirm this. At first glance, these observations imply that if we wish to discover further memories, we will need to collect additional items, likely of personal relevance to Savathun. Confirmation of required item nature forthcoming. And that is the end of this message.
So again, very methodical in their reporting. And the one key thing here is that every time he puts this shard out here, it plays the same memory. Like no matter how much he wants to view something different of it, that same memory always plays out every single time. Like he does mention like every once in a while there's maybe a few words here or there, and he tries to like respond to them.
Yeah. Well, and those words, I believe what he's referring to are the little two truth and two lie messages
Oh
from
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Savathun that played when you do the altars now. Like if you go back and do them from the directory, uh, you'll get a like pre-recorded message of two truth and two lie from Savathun after you view the memory of the altar. I think that's what's being referred to there.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, and that makes sense too, because that those set of words like change every time, and sometimes they
Right.
do ask questions, and like you almost want to like answer them, and in his case, like Lisbon accidentally like answers and is like, oh damn it, this is a recording, but then again, it works to Savathun, like for you not understanding that helps
Right.
further her.
Absolutely.
Although I guess it's important to note at this point in time, like you misunderstanding her now doesn't do anything for her.
Not anymore. Not
It,
in the like feeding her power way
yeah,
at
because
least.
she's separate. She's completely. I mean, she died. She completely died and was separated from her worm, and is now a light bearer. So
Hmm.
us giving her these memories is just kind of like part of her grand scheme, whatever. But yeah, she doesn't. As much as she is the hive god of deception and trickery, that those things don't do anything for her other
Yeah.
than like make her go, "Ha, I was right."
Yeah. So again, just kind of like establishing the rules that this altar works on at this point.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there a permanent association with a particular memory and the item. Um, and there's no way to change it or alter it as far as they can find. So they do what any good, scientist does and go, all right, let's start changing things. Let's pick a variable and start changing that variable and see what happens. Uh, and so in the next chapter, Altars of Reflection, new input, that is exactly what they do. They go, all right, let's start changing the item on the altar and see what we can find. And so this one goes like this. Logical next steps in analysis involve changing a variable in the known functional equation. I've taken the liberty of borrowing some items from others in order to conduct some tests regarding expectations. It is worth assessing how much influence the viewer has on the outcome. First test. Introduction of a reasonably generic item. As expected, a chunk of glimmer did nothing. A broken off piece from the grip of a new sidearm purchased specifically for this purpose, next to nothing. For a moment, there was a shadow, something that vaguely resembled the gunsmith at work or in conversation, but no memory replay, as we had seen in the items known to produce memories of Savathun. Second test. I had an acquaintance borrow a trinket from a friend of theirs whom I have not met. The item is a medallion, smaller than my palm, with old, rubbed faint engravings. Following the introduction of this item to the altar, a visible memory resulted, playing out in third person, much like the other memories. I recorded details of this memory for reference and confirmation of accuracy. Specifics omitted here as irrelevant. Once a recording had been made and committed, I accessed the file provided by the owner of the item. This file included summaries of what he thought were the most likely memories to be associated with the item. And as you can see, details of what I observed matched one of those summaries. The owner's ghost to provide additional context if necessary, either on my return or when another hidden agent reaches out. Would like to recommend that another agent repeats the same test to see if they view something different. While we had no reason to doubt the previously revealed memories, all of this adds an additional layer of certainty. That which we can ascertain via the altars is the truth, full and clear. The only remaining doubts are regarding why and which memories. Savathun is known to be cunning, but has ultimately been truthful in previous dealings with the Vanguard. Regrettably, these things are not mutually exclusive. I had additional plans for analysis of the altars involving personal items and memory, but I'm reconsidering the wisdom in doing so, as well as the necessity. Beyond confirming that the memories produced are repeatable, true, and personal, do we need to know more? I will be moving on to the substance of the world next. And that is the end of that message.
So again, very, very methodical, very scientific here.
Mm-hmm.
I try it with one item. This is the memory that plays. Every time I try to view it differently, no matter what, that same memory plays. Okay, well let's change a variable. Throw a different item in there. Throw an item that's just super generic, glimmer, right? Like everybody has money.
Yeah.
Throw money in there. Wow, this really is a government operation, isn't it? Throw money at the problem. Sorry, that was just too on point. I couldn't stop myself from that one. But no, like something super generic that has no sentimental value to someone or no personal memories connected to it. It plays nothing. He goes. So he goes. Okay, well, let's try something a little bit more specific, but still kind of generic. Broken off piece of a sidearm. He went and bought a sidearm, busted the side of it, and was like, "Let's chuck this in there, see what
Which
happens."
is a terrible crime to do to the best gun in the game.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's just like, why would you do that? Like, sidearms are, and Myth will kill me if I don't mention this. Sidearms are literally the highest damage output item in the game for their intended purposes. Again, all of that's very relevant to itself.
Yes.
Though he has turned me on to sidearms, and I'm kind of hoping with him that his breach light does come back.
It wasn't a brave weapon, and I was sad.
Oh, oh shoot! I forgot the live stream came out this last week, didn't it?
Yeah.
I know. I'm off topic now. I'm sorry.
That's my fault.
We were really hoping for it to be one of the returned weapons, and I am apparently just now learning that it is not, and Myth is sad now. Anyway, chunk of sidearm in this altar does next to nothing. Shows Banshee working on it. Like, cool, he works on everything. Like, so if there were any memories to be associated with an item from Banshee, they would presumably be Banshees. Okay, so we're confirming a little bit more things. Then he does this last one where Goes and finds a friend of a friend trinket that he's like never met this person. Is like, let's chuck this in there and see what I see as an outside observer to this. Records a memory. Presumably he does it several times and it plays the same memory every time. Then goes and checks a file that he'd written down about, hey, these are the possible memories that I think you might see. Okay, checks it. Yep, sure enough, right here, there's one of the memories associated with it. So all he's really doing here is confirming throughout this whole process that, like, if I stick an item in here that has the presumably whatever memory is shown has to be like a strong memory, like a very sentimental thing that happened with it. Case in point, the shard of the crystal that Savathun yanked out of her side that we retrieved and shoved in there, like that is showing the moment of her death. Like that's the most significant thing that crystal could show is the moment of her death, and then her getting resurrected in the light.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's again, and he says it at the end here. It's like, okay, cool, we did the thing. I guess we're done.
Yeah, he was like, I had this idea of using my own personal item to, reconfirm like that it's gonna show, what I expect it to show and all of that. But like it's not really necessary at this point, so I'll probably just move on to do something else. Uh but spoilers.
Curiosity
They
gets the
don't.
better of them.
Yeah.
Guardians are nothing if not curious about everything. Like
Oh yes.
the Guardians are notoriously curious about everything around them. So like for him to like mention it here and be like, it's probably fine. No, he's no.
Yeah. And this next entry talks about that and is kind of where this story truly begins. So we're stepping outside the realm of clinical militaristic reports and stepping into the realm of the power of memory. Uh, and so this next chapter is reply to altars of reflection, new input. As if like they wrote the first report, sent it, and then before they even got a response, like went back to it, hit reply, and sent this as like an addendum kind of thing. Uh, and it goes like this. I moved forward with invocation of a personal item anyway, despite previous reports concluding that it was unnecessary. Testing continued with the cloak I have kept from back then, the one I was wearing when I was found. I don't know what I was expecting from it, just that after all that time, not remembering, my curiosity won out. I wanted to know. And the memory was like a key in a lock. All the rest laid open to me once I remembered this one thing. The first time I witnessed the memory, I barely processed any of what was happening. I was so caught up in simply looking at her. I forgot to breathe. She had the most luminous blue eyes. How could I have ever forgotten her? Everything in my head was jumbled. All the things I had forgotten were trying to be heard at once, and she was the only constant. So I used the item again, this time intending to make a coherent report, thinking I could process by writing it all down. I just wound up watching it again, caught up in remembering the three of us. This awful set of moments, suspended in perfect replica. Before this, I didn't recall anything of the incident, even who my fire team was at the time. I wondered what might be in that gap, and why I hesitated even when I was curious. It wasn't enough to know that I had survived and should not return. I think, despite all that wondering, some part of me didn't want to remember. But that's how lies happen, isn't it? In the places we don't want to look. Little by little, we let the weeds grow and the shadows encroach. We tell ourselves there's nothing in the overgrowth. And if there is, it isn't something that matters very much. But deep sight does not allow for such deceptions. That's the end of that message.
Yeah, because that's not super ominous. He's not wrong though. Like the one thing about this space, the altars of reflections and deep sight for that matter, these memories have all been like true and accurate and correct. Like there's no falsivity in any of them, because all it is a playback.
Mm-hmm.
It's as if somebody were standing next to whatever item was thrown into the altar at the, way back whenever it needed to be remembered, and was like recording the whole thing, and that's what plays back here in the altar. So whatever this memory is that Lisbon has now unlocked seems very bad.
Yeah. Yes. They have unlocked something that a piece of them did not want to remember. But now it's there, it's out in the open, and there's no putting it back in the box, essentially. So we're going to take a break from this lore book to explore what those memories are, what that story is, or at least the pieces of it that we have access to through other items and the lore on those items. So, something that's going to be important to know here going into this is there's going to be a term called the cryptocron. The cryptocron order is an order of warlocks. It no longer exists at our time in the in game. Is now defunct. Uh, One member of the group was known as Sybil, and another member of the group was Rakana. Um, the order was disbanded and banished from the city following Osiris's exile. So I don't know if they were tied to him in some way previously or if it's just coincidental. Uh, but they were not welcome in the last city, but still operated in secret for a while after their banishment. So remember, Cryptocron, super secret warlock sect banished from the city. And with that in mind, we are going to turn our attention to the next lore card for this episode, which is that of the Divinity, the exotic trace rifle from the Garden of Salvation. And we will actually be looking at quite a few pieces of equipment from the Garden of Salvation for this. But Divinity kind of begins our story, or at least the earliest point that we see referenced in the lore. And it goes like this. Lisbon 13 looked back toward where they had left Yardrum 4. Separating the team always felt wrong, but Rakana needed uninterrupted time to confer with the senior Sybil, and if the Vex had detected their crash landing in the Black Garden, Yardrum 4 would give them that time. You'll have to move quickly, Sybil said to Rakana. Lisbon 13 shared their secret channel. Rakana had trusted him with that. The Vanguard have discovered that our order persists, as Osiris predicted. And they'll send a fire team after us then. And after any other cryptocron they learn of, but your path is more dangerous than most. The Circle has foreseen many fire teams following in your footsteps. You can find the knowledge the Order seeks at the tree. Can, not will? For the first time, Rakana sounded concerned. The Circle has had limited success in piercing the veil that surrounds the Black Garden, so the Order offers no certainties. They say that a group of Guardians will discover secrets about the origin of the Black Garden at the tree. The Unuromatic Circle foresees no reason why it will not be the Kentarch-3. Nor can I, but there is another thread in the tapestry, entwined with this one. The Vex, or some fractal faction of them, worship or honor a divinity there. The Black Heart, it was destroyed. Yes, but this is something different. An object. Something like a sacred relic. It is important to the Vex for reasons that we have not yet fathomed. The Circle has determined that it is dangerous. A Vex weapon? Perhaps. Sybil sounded annoyed at the interruption. Rakana, the Circle concluded that it is a danger to you. And to me? But then, why send me on this mission? When the Circle dreamed of the object, you were beside it. All right. We'll see what fate we will find ourselves in, Sybil. Rakana paused a long while. I don't know that we'll see each other again. The veil around the Black Garden, the influence of the Vex, they make such matters difficult to know. I choose to believe that we will meet again. Then I won't say goodbye, Rakana said and closed the channel. Rakana stood, eyes closed, for a time. Lisbon 13 waited. Lisbon, when we find it, she said, opening her eyes, you should carry it. The object? This divinity. I can think of no one whom I'd trust more with it than you. And that's the end of the lore card.
Well, okay. That's not super cryptic at all. uh yeah, holy shit. Okay. So I'm going to try to put things together here and see if I can understand what is happening in this card. Lisbon 13 and Rakana and presumably Yardam 4 have crashed into the Black Garden.
Yes.
Okay. Making sure I got all the people there. They're talking, or I say they, Rakana is talking to the God damn, these are hard ass words. Cryptocrons.
Yeah.
That being this super secret society that obviously at our time is defunct. So this is happening long before D1.
Yes.
Or no, it has to be post D1, right?
Uh,
Because they're talking about how the Black Heart is dead.
oh, I guess that's true. Yeah.
It does say the Black Heart was destroyed. Yep.
Yeah.
So
I
sometime
guess
between D1 and D2.
Yeah, I guess I was originally thinking it would have been right after Osiris's exile, but they could just be operating on like a prophecy from Osiris from, way back when.
Oh, sure, sure.
So yeah, but you're right. If the heart's dead, it has to be post D1.
Well, and like Osiris's cult that he totally didn't form, but totally did on
Right.
accident, like by proxy, is still operating. Like Brother
Yeah.
Vance was
Yeah.
running the trials of Osiris, and so like his cult is still going forward. So it's not hard to think that they would be looking at one of his predictions and going, okay, well here's the thing that's playing out. Like,
Yeah.
let's keep going. Um, but again, and they mention here that order, the order of the Cryptocrons, I've got to slow that word down or I can't read it, uh, persisted, and the Vanguard has discovered them, but presumably they should have been shut down, and
Yeah.
now they're just operating in secret. And they keep talking about this, the circle, it seems to me this circle is like a group of people. I don't know if they're guardians or what, but seemingly see into the future by way of like a tapestry, like the way this tapestry being woven, kind of like oh God, what movie was that? Wanted? Is that the movie? I think that's the movie with Morgan Freeman and God, Angelina Jolie. They curve the
I
bullet.
yeah, that is Wanted for sure. I didn't see it, so I don't know how the tapestry relates, but
For some reason, I remember the tapestry being the thing. Like that's how they determine who they need to kill next. Like however the way that the loom like crosses over a section of thread just right and creates little like distortions in the tapestry. But this tapestry's been being woven since like the beginning of time. And however these like blips, these little mistakes in the tapestry happen. Like they decode it and it gives them a name, like in Morse code type thing. So
interesting.
that's what I'm presuming is happening here because they keep mentioning this tapestry because they talk about well in the tapestry it was woven that you'd be standing next to the item or whatever. Um, but yeah, the item that they're talking about here, I'm trying to I'm kind of like drawing a conclusion here or an inference. I'm assuming the item that they are mentioning is not Divinity, the gun.
It
I'm
might be though.
You
Like
think so?
I mean, the way that
I
they're
was under
talking about it.
I was under the
Uh,
assumption that it was the oh, what is it? The communication device,
it could also be the relic
the
under
relic.
the like pyramid scale at the end. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it could be that too. It might just be that the name of the gun, Divinity, is a reference to the fact they're hunting for something the Vex
That are
call
worshiping.
divine. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
absolutely.
because that's the thing that is mentioned through this too. Is they're talking about how the Vex are worshiping something again. Like first off, they're like
Right.
the Black Heart, like it's that thing was destroyed. Well, clearly they're worshiping something again. Um,
Yeah.
and that's I'm personally inclined to think that it's the actual relic
That would
that's
make
sending out
sense.
that signal that we end up getting the other half of it in Shadowkeep,
Yeah.
which then of course is what like once you start that quest, that is the Divinity quest line. You go through, you do all the little puzzles and stuff, line up the little beams and little what are they, 8-sided? Are they 8-sided? Yeah. Uh, uh, 8-sided little prism things, and then you get to the end, and then you do the little like, oh, stand in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now keep changing your order. Make the symbol look like the symbol on the ground, and then you yell at who's ever in like third and fourth position because they can't count forwards or backwards. Then you get to the end, you beat the boss, and you're all happy because you finally did it. And it added. Everyone's like, oh, this added like 17 hours to our run, and it only added like 30 minutes.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's accurate.
yeah. But so that's what this team is doing. They've crash landed in the garden. One of them is causing a ruckus, or
Yeah.
leading the way. It seems at this Yardom 4, and Lisbon and Rakana are communicating back to the Cryptocron and discovering, hey, we need to go find this item.
Yeah. And to dive a little more onto the unromantic circle. So just doing some Google foo here. Uh, the unromantic circle is assumed to be either the leaders of or a group within the Cryptocron order.
Okay.
Uh, and she's talking about seemingly that like this circle, like you said, like seems to have some way of viewing future events.
Yeah.
Well, onryomancy uh, is again a derives its name from Greek onrios, which means to dream. And onryomancy is a form of divination derived from dreams that predict the future.
Okay.
So, likely this is a group of people that somehow, some way, can see visions of the future while they dream, and the Cryptocrons enact those visions, I guess.
Yeah. Or dispatch fire teams to
To
deal
enact
with
those.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Okay. Okay. Cool. Got a set of parameters established, right? We're doing the scientific thing, just like Lisbon,
Yeah.
like establish parameters. Now we dissect.
Yeah. So they left Yardom 4 to like deal with the Vex and give them enough time to have this communication. And it's interesting that Lisbon kind of points out that that Rakana has looped him in on this like super secret Cryptocron channel, which leads me to believe that he is not a Cryptocron. That perhaps Rakana is the only one here that is part of that order.
I think you're right.
And the other two are either, friends that came along or hired hands or whatnot. But by nature of trusting Lisbon enough to include him in their secret communications tells me that they either know each other beforehand or they like really connected in a short time. Uh, but yeah, so from divinity, we are going to move on to the various armor sets that are found in the Garden of Salvation to continue the story of the Kentarch-3 and the events that happened with them in the garden, in this search of uh, divinity or whatever divine object the Vex were worshipping. So we're going to start with the Helm of Righteousness, which is the Titan Helm. And this is one of those instances where all of the armor sets are different lore cards, but they're being told they're telling the same events from the points of view of the different Fireteam members. So the Helm of Righteousness, the Titan set, I believe all of it is from Yardom 4's point of view. So we're going to start there, and it goes like this. How about now? Still nothing. Yardom 4 squinted up at his ghost. You sure? Of course I'm sure. There are no Vex within at least a mile. What about... They're on their way back now. What do you think they were doing? Yardom 4 rolled his eyes and kicked a stone over the cliff's edge. Oh, come on. You've got all those sensors and you can't pick up on the signals they're sending? Yardom 4's ghost bobbed in the air, visibly acting out its waffling thoughts. Hey, don't worry about it. I'm not jealous. You're not. His ghost sounded shocked. Boy, you really don't get people, do you? Yardom 4 watched his ghost shift his gaze around, trying to make up some excuse for itself. Hey, it's okay, he said. I don't need you for that. I just need you to watch my back. I'll take care of the team. Rakana might be the captain, but the good ship Kentarch needs sails if it's going to go anywhere. And the sails are you. Yup, and the anchor, too. Okay, his ghost said, shifting its shell and trying to work through the metaphor. Then what is Lisbon 13? The rudder. The rudder. I don't get it. The rudder is attached to the tiller. If the ship doesn't have it, the captain can't steer. The ship is adrift at sea. So you'd be lost without him. Lost? Nah. We'd know where we were. We just couldn't be sure where we'd end up. Wow, that's deep. Hey, how do you know so much about ships? Yardom 4 shrugged. Just do. Always have. So, you're really not jealous? Shut up. You really don't get people. And that's the end of that lore card.
Dude, this metaphor, this might be the deepest Titan I've ever met.
Yeah.
Like this is deep. Like I've got no words for this. It's just you know me, I'm secret hidden Titan in a warlock dress, run around punch things, use shotgun run out of bullets, use shotgun as club. Uh, this is deep. Like I love his metaphor here. Like they have their fire team is a ship, and he's the sails. He helps push them along. Like he helps move them along, but doesn't steer it. Like Lisbon's the one that kind of steering it. Like, hey, maybe we need to go check out over here. Okay, let's push through over here, and then Rakana's the captain. Like she's the main. Like she's kind of like leading everyone. Like this is amazing. This is really cool. I like this.
Yeah. And it's interesting. The implication here is that there's some kind of romance going on
That's
between Lisbon and Rakana.
that's what I was thinking too. Where he's like, "You really don't get people, do you?" And
Well, and the ghost keeps asking, like, are you jealous of them? Like, kind of. I don't know if the ghost thinks uh that Yardam has feelings for one or the other, or did, or I don't know what the implication here is, but it seems like Yardam, at least initially, is telling the ghost, like, look, that's not how this works.
yeah,
uh,
I'm not a third wheel. I'm actually part of this ship.
yeah. So, but while this is happening, we know from Divinity that what they were doing off on their own was this secret communication back to the Crypticron. Uh, and we're going to pick up immediately after that communication. So we know Yardam, this is him like looking for Vex, setting down a defensive position to protect them while they do this message. Uh, and then we're going to transition now to the Cowl of Righteousness, the Hunter armor, which is going to tell us the perspective of Lisbon 13, who is presumably the hunter of the group. And this takes place immediately after that communication has ended. Um, and so I'm pretty sure when Lisbon or when Rakana mentions her in this very first line, she's referring to Sybil in the Crypticron. But without further ado, the Cowl of Righteousness goes like this. Lisbon 13 was already walking away when she spoke. You don't trust her. I can see that. He almost stumbled, but quickened his pace to cover for it. Rakana saw so much. It was the thing that astonished him when they first met. She seemed to see right into him, see all his flaws and failings, all the guilt and regret, and she didn't look away. I don't need to trust her. I trust you. And that's enough? Always. It was, and would be. The truth that rested easy within him, it was the razor that cut through the chaos and ambiguity of their wild and dangerous lives. She knew what she wanted, and she wanted him by her side, and it was an honor. She lingered behind him, no doubt, thinking about their mission. Hey, Slowpoke, you coming? Yes. Lisbon 13 stopped to wait for her. He looked out at the landscape, somehow outside space, terrible and yet still beautiful in its own way. Rakana caught up to him. Strange, being through the looking glass. Yeah. Her eyes were a luminous blue. It was the first thing he had noticed, before he understood what she could see. He wondered at the mind behind them. He wondered what she knew about their mission that she wasn't telling him. He wondered about the ramifications of the Crypticrons learning the truth about what the Black Garden might be. But then he remembered that none of that mattered. He didn't need to ask questions if she knew the answers. We should get back to Yardom before he starts shooting bugs for fun. That's the end of that lore card.
There's the Titan. There's the Titan. I know he really is. Shooting bugs for fun. I love it. I love it. I'm so far loving this team. Like, I love the dynamic here that they've got. Like, they're absolutely in love. Like, if it's not, well, I can't tell if it's, but no, it's got to be both ways. Love. Like, I don't know.
Well, one way to
Because
find
she
out.
talks about seeing like his flaws and failings and the guilt, and she doesn't look away, and I trust you, and he's
Yeah.
like, oh, the luminous blue. Yeah, it's absolutely both ways.
Yeah.
They're completely infatuated with each other. There's no, oh man, god damn it, Myth. You know what that means, right?
I don't know. What does it mean?
That means Bungie's gonna kill them all and rob me of this. I got one, and that was it. I don't even remember what it was. I think it would no, it killed them too.
You got
Every
Drifter
love
and
story.
Eris.
That's what I got. That's the one thing that I get to keep. Everything outside of that, as soon as it starts, Tanaris and Tanner's Tanar. I don't whatever. The Riven, the dragons, the crow. No, this. Damn it. I can't. Damn it, Myth.
Well, we can see this interaction from Rakana's side. At in the Mask of Righteousness, which is the Warlock armor set. So presumably she is a Warlock, which makes sense. The Crypticrons being a Warlock order by description.
Well, and I was looking through the pieces of gear too. The flavor text on them confirms what you were thinking. Yardom is labeled as Yardom 4, Titan of the Kentarch-3.
Yeah.
Rakana here is listed as Rakana, Warlock of the Kentarch-3, and Lisbon 13 is listed as Lisbon 13, Hunter of the Kentarch-3.
Yeah. So there we go. Confirmation that they line up with their armor sets. But yeah, so this is the same interaction, but Rakana's point of view. And this one goes like this. You don't trust her, Rakana said. I can see that. Lisbon 13 was already walking away. I don't need to trust her. I trust you. A truth he threw lightly over his shoulder, but Rakana felt its weight. And that's enough? Always. Rakana took a quick half step, trying to catch up to a heart that had leapt too far ahead. But her thoughts were heavy. Crypticrons learn to judge and balance secrets. Everyone with sense knows ignorance isn't bliss, but few besides the Crypticrons know how terrible the truth can be. Those warlocks who join the Order must be willing to learn what most would rather not know, and to remember what they would rather forget. But accepting a truth is always harder when it's the one you cannot share. She had known she had known it would happen before they met. She knew everything about him before he'd ever laid eyes on her. She even knew about the man Clovis Bray had to kill 13 times to keep him in check. And it didn't take a war mind to predict how he'd react to her. She thought that all this knowledge would serve as armor. You should care less about the characters when you know how the story ends. But then, she was a character too. It was her story. Hey, Slowpoke, you coming? Yes. Rakana quickened her pace and met him in the shadow of a cube of stone bejeweled by ruby flowers. His glance caught her as she approached and then shifted to the vista around them. Strange being through the looking glass. Yeah. Rakana could see him thinking. His bright eyes were focused on some middle distance as he turned things over in his head. Their mission, what her superior had just told them, and her. His turn toward their camp was abrupt. We should get back to Yardam before he starts shooting bugs for fun. That's the end of her side of that interaction.
It's interesting, like the idea of this Crypticons, like knowing it seems like they know everything.
It does seem that way, and I don't know under what power they're doing that.
That's what's messing with me, because like she even talks about like not just future but past. She even knew about the man Clovis Bray had to kill 13 times to keep him in check.
Yeah.
Like that statement alone presumes they know everything about Lisbon 13.
Yeah,
Like
that's
before he was even a guardian. Like that's big.
yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that like and she's kind of alluding to she knows how all of this is going to end.
That's what I was getting at too. Like she talks about, you should care less about the characters when you already know how the story ends. And then she talks, well, she's a character too. This is her story. So again, it's these Crypticons seem like man, no wonder they shut him down.
Yeah.
I mean, they shut Osiris down for less. So like,
True.
I'm amazed these guys are even mentioned in lore entries. Like, I'm amazed the Vanguard hasn't wiped these guys from like every known space.
I mean, they are now maybe. Like
yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah, it does really make me wonder. And maybe it was just maybe it was just that group that oh, I forgot what the word was already. Like the
The
omniomancy or omnio.
yeah, that word.
Yeah.
Bungie's got to quit using big words.
But maybe it's just like that circle happened to have this ability, and the Crypticons were the people that they shared their knowledge with. Or maybe she was also having these visions of sort. It almost sounds like they knew a way to induce that ability.
Yeah.
By saying like, in order to become a member, you have to accept that you're going to see things that you would rather not know. So yeah, that's really fascinating that there's some kind of like maybe future sight that because I mean, heck, Future War Cult has been trying to do that through mechanical means for a while.
That is instantly where my mind went as soon as you said future sight. I was like, wait a second, you don't think that the Crypticons are part of Future War Cult, you think?
I get the impression it's something different because I feel like with Future War Cult, their whole thing was to like find and recreate the Oxa machine to give themselves or test subjects visions of the future.
I like test subjects. We put that in like asterisks, like.
But those visions were never clear, not in the way that this sounds like it is, and those visions were very like subject to change. Like in some of the lore cards, where it was like 15 different versions of what might happen.
And depending on your point of view of what you're seeing there, it's left up to interpretation. Like I think one of them was talking about how like Mithrax was standing above a corpse of a Vex and the city was on fire. Well, yeah, that happened, but it was because Lakshmi opened a fucking portal in the middle of the city, middle of downtown, and was like, "Hey, Vex, come on in," and we had to go solve it. Like, so, but seeing just that part of it makes it look, the Lakshmi was using that as like ammo. Like, look, Mithrax is bad. Like, he's going to lead us to ruin and stuff. And it's like, well, I mean, from your point of view and from the little bit that you saw there and what you interpreted from it, from your personal interpretations, yeah, of course it looks bad. But then when you need to look at the bigger whole, but like what you're saying with the cryptocrons and this specifically this inner circle, the circle, um, they are. It seems like they have a very accurate way of seeing uh, future and past events.
Yeah. Yeah.
The past events is what keeps getting me. Like he
Yeah.
mentioned the Clovis Bray and had him killed 13 times because again we know this with exos, whatever their number is, that's how many times they were reset. Like Lisbon 13 obviously is being reset 13 times. So yeah, the fact that they know all of it, it seems the entire story of this individual's life before even the collapse is that's freaky. It's again, it is not a wonder why the Vanguard would want them shut down.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but with all this in mind, this team continues their journey through the Black Garden. And we're going to pick it up again with the Titan Gauntlets, Gauntlets of Exaltation. And it goes like this. Yardam 4's back ached, and his feet were sore from running. But now, nothing threatened them in this unnatural veil. He looked over at his companions. They looked as bad as he felt. A joke wouldn't cut it then. He needed to say something that would get their hackles up. You underestimated them, Yardam 4 said. Lisbon 13 turned his head sharply, but Rakana touched Lisbon's arm. Good boy, Yardam thought. She keeps you on a tight leash. These ideas came to Yardam unbidden, and so he said nothing. Yes, Rakana said, but it has given us perspective. Perspective? What utter crap. Yardam 4 had been tired, just playing at anger, but now it felt real. Still, Rakana never said anything without purpose. What perspective is worth nearly dying for? Something passed between Rakana and Lisbon. She did not answer, and Lisbon leapt into the gap she left as he always would. Those defenses were insane. That was true enough. The relays and tethers, the angelics, the Vex really don't want us to be here. That means they consider this place a weakness. It was good to see some color back in her cheeks, observed Yardam 4. And Lisbon had his chest puffed out like some. Yes, it's a weakness, Yardam 4 said, although he hadn't meant to. More words issued from his mouth. Perhaps it's their greatest weakness. Yardam shut his mouth in bewilderment, astonished. The sentiments weren't wrong, but it wasn't that they were things he wouldn't. It wasn't that they were things he wouldn't say. It's just he hadn't meant to say them. Yes, so we must, Rakana began, but then Lisbon raised the weapon they had claimed and scanned the area. Yardam jolted, a hypnic jerk. He wasn't tired anymore. He raised his own gun. What is it? Where's it coming from? Rakana joined them in defense against the unknown, her shoulder brushing Yardam as she drew her gun. I don't hear. You. It's coming from you. Because you're a hero. And that's the end of that chapter.
What the shit is going on here? It's like a body possessed. I don't know. This is weird, Myth.
So,
Like I'm following this scene, like I'm getting it, but like, what the shit is going on?
so we got to remember where they are.
That's true. It is
This
a
is the
Black
Black
Garden.
Garden. And if we know anything about the Black Garden, it will mess with you. I mean, look
It
at
is.
Aldrin
It
and
is
Julian.
fucky. Yeah, it is fucky to say the least. I do like that they do mention like everything that's in Garden of Salvation: the tethers, the relays, the
Yeah.
angelics. Like, I love to see. You know me. I love to see things in game that are canonized in lore and said, well, these things are actually things that are happening. Like this is stuff that actually, everything in the world, people in the world had to deal with stuff like this. So yeah, but I mean, it's clearly this whatever they were after. So now, okay, so the weapon they claim, they're not talking about divinity, right? It's just
I think
a
they have to be,
I'm
honestly.
half and half on it. I don't know if they've claimed divinity or if this is just like, oh, they found a piece of loot, like they got what's one of the loot from Garden, name one, zealot's
Zealot.
return,
Yep.
zealot's rebuke, reborn, return,
Reward.
reward, one of
One
those
of those
things. It's
words.
a
Yeah.
gun.
Uh,
Oh God, I should have gone with an easier one than I remembered, but I can't remember. One of them's like angelic something or another. What's the accrued redemption? There we go.
Crude Redemption. Yeah.
Why didn't I go with the bow first? I should have gone with the bow. So yeah, so I in my mind it was thinking, oh, they just found another gun off of that they'd gotten off of a boss or whatever. But I don't know. You might be right. It might be divinity.
I don't know. Just the
For
way that the Divinity lore card like directly works into all of this,
yeah,
I kind like it feels like it has to be.
yeah, yep,
But but yeah, so they we see kind of this interesting de-evolution happening here. So like originally Yardum is like, all right, everybody's tired. If I crack a joke, it's not gonna do it. I gotta get them. I gotta like say something that's gonna almost offend them a little bit to like
got to
get the
poke the bear.
get them back up and running, get the blood pumping kind of thing. And
Yeah,
so he intentionally is kind of sharp with them at first. Uh and then he starts to realize that like the responses are getting under his skin, and while he's feeling some anger at it, he's also realizing like that's weird. Why is that bothering me?
yeah.
Uh
That's
and
what I was saying. This
then
whole thing is weird.
right. And then he starts to respond, and it's not that they aren't thoughts he wouldn't normally have, but they're not things he would normally vocalize.
Yeah,
Speaking, I think, about like almost implying, to himself that like their relationship is their greatest weakness. Between Lisbon
ooh,
and Rakana. The fact that Lisbon always jumps into her defense, and the like that they are so reliant on each other is what I
oh,
took
so
away as
Yardim's no
him.
longer talking about the situation. He's now
Right.
shifted and talking about the two of them.
Right, because he's watching,
Interesting.
Lisbon jumps in as he always does, according to this, and is like, oh, the defenses were crazy. They had all the relays and the angelics, and they really don't want us to be here. This must be a place of weakness. And Yardam, who's observing, um, I'm assuming color in her cheeks is maybe like a blush from Rakana about
Yeah.
having someone come to her defense. And Lisbon is like got his chest
All
puffed
chest puffed
out.
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
manly man.
And Yardam is looking
Now
at
hold
this
on,
and being
hold on.
like,
We got to remember Lisbon's a hunter.
yeah.
That's not much. Not to be mean to you guys, but you are kind of like the dexterous, like thiefy rogue people. So y'all are like hunters don't have much of a chest to puff out.
So the Titan, Yardam is looking at this and being like, yeah, it's a real weakness. Uh, I think implying, at least internally, though they don't pick up on it, that like this is a weakness. What's happening
Right.
in
What's
this
happening between
situation?
the? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep, yep.
And he surprises himself. He's like, why would I? He's like, even if I thought that, why would I say it? Uh, and then there's suddenly this moment where Lisbon like raises this gun. I'm gonna attribute to divinity until we hear otherwise.
Yep.
Raises this gun and starts scanning, like they're looking on the lookout for something. And Yardam joins him. Is like, what do you hear? What do you see? And Rakana as well. And then it's unclear, but I think it's I think it's Yardam that says the last line. Because
That's where
Rakan,
I'm confused at. It doesn't say
yeah.
who says it, but like, what
So
is this last line?
Rakana like comes to them, forms up in like a, all of them are back to back in like a triangle kind of thing,
Yeah.
looking for stuff. She's like, I don't hear anything. And then I think Yardam is the one that is like says to her, it's you. It's coming from you because you're a hero.
What the fuck does that even mean?
I don't know,
Does
but
she have
we're going to
like her
find
own little
out.
like? I imagine that as like she has her own little theme music playing all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I don't know why Final Countdown instantly, but I was like da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, and that's what's so now that's like playing just like through her headset, and she's like, I don't hear anything, and they're like, you're playing music, stop it,
Turn it down. Yeah.
turn it down. You have it on external speakers, put it on your headset.
Uh, yeah, in my mind, because I've been playing far too much Rebirth, what I'm hearing is the da 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 da.
The fucking battle theme because they just started a battle. I
Yep.
like it. I like that more than Final Countdown.
But yes.
Yeah, no, I'm following. I'm following.
So this is uh Yardam's point of view of the situation. So let's move on to the hunter armor, the grips of exaltation, and see Lisbon's point of view of this situation. So this one goes like this. Lisbon 13 looked around the grotto, and then at his companions. Rakana seemed tired. It had been a rough fight, but it was more than that. She had lost confidence somehow. That wasn't normal. You underestimated them, Yardam 4 accused. Lisbon 13 felt Rakana's hand on his arm and said nothing. Yes, but it has given us perspective. Perspective? Yardam 4 didn't wait for an explanation. What perspective is worth nearly dying for? Rakana looked to Lisbon, and he understood. She had underestimated the Vex. Never in her darkest dreams had she foreseen the kind of resistance they had encountered. It meant their quest had more meaning. There was a destiny in it that had somehow gone unaccounted for. Those defenses were insane, Lisbon said, thinking of the implications. The relays and the tethers, the angelics, the Vex really don't want us to be here. That means they consider this place a weakness. Yes, a weakness, Yardam reasoned, and there was an echo in the cave. Perhaps it's their greatest weakness. But it was not an echo. Another voice said weakness again. Yes, so we must, Rakana started, but then Lisbon raised the weapon Rakana had made him carry. He scanned the area. Yardam 4 started, as if hit by a spark, and raised his gun. What is that? He sounded rattled. Where's it coming from? Rakana backed up to them, automatically taking a defensive position. I don't hear, Rakana said before falling silent. Those with strength enough need not consider the weakness of others. And that's the end of that lore card.
Oh, okay. This is fucky myth. There's a different line at this one.
Yeah.
So now I'm starting to think that each one. Okay, so the way that they're describing these echoes, right? Again, we got to know what place they're in. They're in the Black Garden. Like this is a fucky place to begin with. Like we know that it drove Crow, well at the time Uldren and Julian insane. Like literally drove them to insanity. So clearly we're seeing some of that play out here. The fact that the last line has changed, now I'm starting to think that neither that last line of the first one or the last line of this one were said by any of the Fireteam members.
Maybe not.
I'm starting to think that it is coming from the garden itself.
Very possible.
Which then also means that the garden has its own theme music, and the garden knows it.
Yep. Yep.
Now,
Uh,
now I can hear his Final Fantasy VII battle theme playing in my
you're
head.
welcome.
God damn it!
Hey, if you got to choose one, it's not a bad
It's
one to have.
well, so okay, we're gonna deviate for a second. I'm a very Final Fantasy VIII and Tactics fan, those are my typical battle themes that play through my head. But because Seven, the Rebirth and Reborn and Remake and all that stuff is very prevalent right now, obviously that's like the main one that's playing through everyone's head. So I'm gonna choose to listen in my head. It's Final Fantasy VIII's battle theme, though
Okay.
I can't place that sound right now because all I can hear is goddamn Final Fantasy VII battle theme.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And specifically the little crescendo, the da na na na, the little crescendo part in it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. God damn it.
But something else that I think is really interesting with these lore cards, and I guess this is true just in general. Different people are going to have different perspectives on the same situation, but you know, their different connotations are
Yeah.
being applied to things said. So, from Yardim's point of view, he's like, "All right, I gotta say something that's gonna get him riled up to like get him going again." Uh, and from Lisbon's point of view, he sees it as like an accusation,
Yeah.
and he sees it as an accusation pointed at Rakana specifically. That she had underestimated the Vex. That how could she have possibly foreseen this level of resistance? And like that's why he comes to her defense, because he sees Yardim as like accusing her of
Yeah.
you were not prepared for this. um and that is not at all how Yardrim was perceiving it on his side. So it's interesting to see those differences, and I think we're probably going to see even a few more. Moving on to the Warlock gloves and the gloves of exaltation, uh, and we'll see Rakana's point of view, which goes like this: Yardam 4 looked grim. It was the face he always made when he switched from his sometimes abrasive affability to the sober disdain that meant he was taking a situation seriously. There was also that hot glimmer in his eyes that presaged that he was going to say something to provoke her. You underestimated them. There was no venom in the words, just a simple fact, plainly stated. Rakana put a hand on Lisbon's arm before he leapt to her defense. Yes, she said. There is no point in disassembling and no shame in being wrong. The Vex were the most formidable opponent of the Omniocratic Circle. As beings who share thoughts across time and realities, the Vex often eluded prediction, even those of the most senior members of her order. A fellow Cryptocron who'd spoken with a member of the Circle likened it to trying to count all of the crystals of a snowflake melting in your hand. The very act of examination changed the result, and often the evidence disappeared before it could be taken into account. But it has given us perspective. Perspective. What perspective is worth nearly dying for? Yardim's anger was dulled by curiosity. Rakana glanced at Lisbon. He was as reliable as ever. Those defenses were insane. Lisbon's clever mind made leaps, following her logic. The relays and the tethers, the angelics. The Vex really don't want us to be here. And that means they consider this place a weakness. And Yardam arrived at the same conclusion. Yes, a weakness. Perhaps their greatest weakness. Yes, so we must. Rakana stopped, and Lisbon 13 raised the weapon they had claimed, his head on a swivel. Yardam followed suit. What is that? Yardam sounded rattled. Where's it coming from? The three of them stood back to back, listening, I don't hear. But then she did. And that's where that one ends.
Yeah, it's either that or she dun 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 dun. Right, like that's One Wing Angel. Yeah, yeah. Damn it, Myth.
uh, don't hate me.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. No. Uh, no. Okay. So again, I love seeing these scenes being played out from the different perspectives of the different fire team members. Like this is I don't these are probably like the most intense scenes and most descriptive scenes because you're seeing it from three different point of views.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a very I like that. That's really really cool. Um, and of course each one has their own little spin on it too. Now the thing that gets me with this one is the ending, of course, where it says Rakana says, "I don't hear," but then she did. But then it doesn't give us what she heard.
Yeah.
Like there's no message there. So that's even weirder than the first two messages being different. So like are the first two messages part of the same message? Did they hear two different messages? Did they is like what the fuck is happening? Again, it's the garden.
It
This
is.
place is crazy. It will drive a man to insanity. Uh so yeah, I don't know what the hell is going on in here.
Well, let's continue and find out. So we are going to pick up now on the plate of transcendence, the Titan chess piece from the garden. And it continues this interaction, and it goes like this. The Artem 4 spun, looking around the grotto. You hear that? Who is it? The Artem 4 had to stop himself from shouting. I hear it, Rakana and Lisbon said as one. A chill ran through him. How had they heard the voice if it was in his head? All three guardians called for their ghosts. Ghost? Yardam was first. What have we got? Yardam started walking away, even as his compatriots began talking with them. What are you looking for? His ghost asked. Anything. Everything. I'm I'm not. Scan me. Look for something. Someone else. Wow. Okay. His ghost didn't understand, but did as it was asked. So, what exactly am I look? And Yardam 4 watched his ghost scan sputter out. And then the ghost fell and clattered across the ground. And as Yardam picked it up, he felt his light fading. Yardam, Lisbon, you okay? Rakana asked from somewhere distant. Yeah, sure. But Yardam did not feel okay. And he was not sure about anything. And that's the end of that entry.
What the fuck? Is okay, so what the fuck? Is this okay, I can't analyze this without the other two halves of the other two thirds of this fucking conversation. Ah, damn it, man. Uh this has gotta be the traveler taken.
Yeah, I mean,
How
timeline
how else
wise, it
how
would
else
certainly line up.
how else would I mean again, I keep coming back to this. It's the garden. It's fucky. You could shit like this could happen in there. But this has got to be the moment that, dude, can you imagine a fire team in the garden suddenly lightless?
Yeah,
What do
that
you do in
of
that
all the
situation?
places.
That's what I'm saying. Like, like okay, you're on Mars, you're lightless. Like, oh, that fucking sucks. Let me get to my jump shit and get the hell out of here. But like, you're in the garden. What do you do?
Right.
hunker down and pray. Like I don't have
I mean,
I
to
don't
be
have a
fair,
contingency plan for this.
right. To be fair, Aldrin and Julian were not guardians,
That is
and they
true.
survived the garden, so it's
Survived is a
possible.
strong word.
Well, in the
Survived is
most
probably the only
technical
word.
sense.
Survived is probably the only word.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. All right, yeah. Hunker down and survive, I guess. That's the best you could do.
Yeah.
Oh
But
my god. Okay,
it
I've got to see the other two halves of this.
yeah. So it looks like, it does look like from this, from Yardim's perspective, like they all called their ghosts out. Presumably to do scans or whatever. And it's interesting that Yardim was like, scan me. Like make sure I'm me. Which is a weird request. I mean, I understand, he's like, they heard something that I heard in my head.
Yeah.
That's something's going on. Make sure I'm like put together correctly. Uh,
Oh. So, okay. So let me rewind a bit then and go back to that first message that was heard by Yardam. It says it's coming from you. It's because you're the hero. Something in his head was telling him that.
that's what it seems. Cause he verbalizes, uh, you know, do you hear that? Who is that? And Rakana and Lisbon both respond at the same time with
Yeah.
I hear it. And it says a chill ran through him. How had they heard the voice if it was in his head?
So that means that Lisbon's reading his had have only been heard in his head.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Oh my god, dude, this is okay. You have to continue. I
Yeah.
can't.
All right. Well, then let's get right into Lisbon. So this is the Hunter Vest of Transcendence, and it goes like this: the ghosts all started chattering at once, and Lisbon stepped away from his compatriots to hear his own. Scanning. No sign of complex life besides you three. Widening the scan perimeters. I got Bupkis. Look for any kind of transmission or nearby audio device, Lisbon ordered. We're getting sound without a source. Got it, his ghost said, but then it wobbled in the air. Oh, don't got it. Lisbon grabbed his ghost before it could fall. In the grotto, their light faded. He heard Rakana ask, Yardam, Lisbon, you okay? I'm fine, he said, and he was. Something strange, something alarming was happening, but Lisbon 13 felt no fear. As the gloom faded to black, Lisbon set his shoulders. Whoever, whatever it was that had spoken, it would speak again. And Lisbon 13 stood against the dark and waited to have words. And that's the end of that one.
Okay, that's 2 of 3 with no lights. So it's like this is confirming. Like to me, this has got to be the time. Now that's kind of mind blowing too to think that the now I guess it's not too out of the realm of possibility. Sorry, I'm 1001 thoughts all happening once. Gaul encases the traveler, cuts light off from everyone.
Mm-hmm.
These guardians are inside the Black Guardian. Bleh, bleh, bleh. Words, slow down. These guardians are inside the Black Garden. While inside the Black Garden, they do still have access to their light. When the light is shut off, it is also felt here in the Black Garden. Presumably, that's again, I'm making an assumption of what is happening to these 3 guardians. But the Black Garden is kind of its own little space, right? Like we don't really know where it exists physically. Like we have entry points to it, but then it kind of exists outside of our existence. They keep making that reference of like through the glass, and that's how I always imagine the Black Garden is, like through the glass. And
Yeah.
again, I love Alice in Wonderland. I love Through the Looking Glass. I mean, what's not to like about a book written by a guy who's just high off his ass on opioids, and just what he's seeing on a day-to-day basis. Of course, he's talking to caterpillars and eating mushrooms and shit. Yeah, no, it's that's what this place is, though. That's what the Black Garden is. It's this realm of possibility and life and everything, and like we've talked about in several different episodes. The most recent one being our previous episode with Tannerus and his nesting area. Um, so yeah, like this is a crazy place that possibility is just the beginning of what can happen in here. But for the traveler for the light to be cut off from them to the traveler, even in this space, I think that's kind of remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, it means that wherever the garden is, it
It's got to be
it's
within our reality.
right. Like in order for light to have an effect on it, it
Yeah,
needs to be either that or coming into the garden, the guardians or their ghosts have some kind of tether still to our, to the normal soul system reality.
some way
And
of keeping the two of them connected, and therefore, while a guardian is inside, it is therefore connected to our reality.
in some
Is
fashion,
is it
yeah.
is the garden like Schrodinger's? Like you're only like until you observe it, you have no idea what it is.
Maybe so.
But then by the act of observing it, has now made it a thing.
Yeah. Well,
That's what I'm
and
trying to think
she
now.
Rakana kind of equated the Vex in general to something similar in the
Yeah,
previous entry, where like
yeah,
the act of attempting to observe them changes
yeah.
the
The snowflake
results
thing.
of observing them. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, so the Vex are like Schrodinger's. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
I got you. Gotcha.
So there is some wild things happening here though.
Well, whatever's speaking to him, like again,
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to the ending of Shadowkeep, and um and the message that was given to us there. That
Mhm.
again, I'm half and half on the idea of a voice in the darkness being its own entity, like above the witness. I'm I really am split, like right down like 50-50. Like I like the idea of it, of like there being something else. Every time it's talked about, it feels like it's another being. But then every once in a while, when the Vanguard talk about it, they talk about it being the voice in the darkness is the witness. So it's like I can't. Again, we'll see when we get to final shape what the hell's going on here. Hopefully, um, but yeah, like I that speech at the end, to like, we are not your enemy, we're not your friend, we're your salvation. That's the voice that I'm thinking of, and especially because all these guardians are man, it's got to be right. It's got to be the voice in the darkness talking to all three of them.
Something out there.
But for that to
Uh,
be happening pre Shadowkeep, because if this
right.
blip of lightlessness is happening, that's D2
Beginning of
launch.
D2. Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so we're talking 2 years before the events of Shadowkeep. Holy
Well,
shit.
and this is minor spoilers, but a lore card later on will confirm for us that this is pre-Forsaken as well. So
Fuck me. Yeah,
timeline wise,
it's
definitely
got to
lines up.
be. So what the fuck is going on? How long is that? So then how could it have been Divinity?
I mean, Divinity could have existed in a form before we found it, or before, Divinity might just be a like you follow the blueprint and it makes a divinity kind of thing.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
it
But whatever
it's
divinity
also
forms is inherent to you. What you see as divinity isn't what the Vex see as divinity.
right, and that we also have to acknowledge that there is some general like fuckery that happens with exotic weapons that like have
That's
a
true.
this is the sole version of this weapon, yet because video game,
There
20,000
everyone has
guardians
got it.
have it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
So, hard to say exactly where that line's being drawn in the case of Divinity, um but yeah.
Man. Man. Okay. Let's see part 3.
So part 3, this is from Rakana's point of view. And this one goes like this. You hear that? Who is that? Yardam sounded like he was on the verge of panic. Rakana had never heard him like that. Not even in the worst of firefights, not even in their last battle, which may had been the last battle for the Kentarch-3. I hear it, Rakana and Lisbon said as one, and all three guardians summoned their ghosts almost simultaneously. Ghost, Yardam was first. What have we got? Scan the area for life, Lisbon ordered. Multifacetic scan, Rakana barked at her ghost. Their ghosts all started chattering at once, and they stepped away from one another to hear, fanning out across the grotto and widening their defensive triangle. There's something weird, Rakana's ghost blurted, words shooting from it rapid fire. I'm getting static on every wavelength. It's like there's a shadow being cast by every signal. It's nothing specific, but it's everywhere. Wait, there's something wrong. And Rakana's ghost dropped like a stone. She snatched it out of the air. She looked behind her. Lisbon was holding his ghost, and Yardam was picking his up from the ground. The light around them faded, and the gloom of the grotto closed in. Yardam, Lisbon, you okay? I'm fine, came Lisbon's reply, and he sounded calm. Yeah, sure. Yardam's reply was distant and growing fainter, like he was facing away and moving off. Rakana reached for her emergency light. Wait. It was a whisper, but not from her friends. It came from somewhere ahead of her, deeper in the grotto. Wait, please. Can we just talk for a minute? And that's the end of that entry.
Nope. 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 Fuckity nope. To hell with that. I am not answering that question. Goodbye. Nope. We can't talk for a minute. We can't chat for a minute. We can't sit for a minute. Nope. Nope.
So here's the really evil thing about this lore card. That this is gonna be the last one we read tonight.
You ass. You. Oh, you.
And I know that this is a cliffhanger.
This is bullshit, man.
However, I promise you that it is better than continuing and ending it later on.
I'm gonna call horse shit, but fine. Fine. Be that way, Mr. Nope, nope, nobody, nope. What the fuck is happening in this cave? Now I don't know if it's I'm half and half now on if it's got in my mind it's got to be the Gaul thing, right? It's got to be the traveler encasing it because all their ghosts
I think so.
instantly drop. Like that's
I
be
really
the thing.
do think so. Yeah.
But then for this voice to be a reply, like, or to even be present there to be speaking these things, making me think that okay, that just kind of like gave the voice in the dark a chance to speak type thing. Like the light was so blinding up to this point that
well, and maybe
no guardian...
protective. Like if they live their whole lives encased in this shell of light,
yeah,
then maybe the voice has never been able to talk to them before until now that barrier's not there anymore.
I like that. I like that idea. Again, leading more to the idea that the darkness isn't our friend or our enemy, it's just another entity. Damn it. These guys are good. These writers are good. Oh, man. I can't. Shit. June cannot get here fast enough, Myth.
I know.
I need goddamn answers is what is going on here. Okay. Fine. All right. Well, cliffhanger, people.
I do apologize because I...
No, he doesn't. Don't let him apologize to you.
I am not I'm someone that really doesn't like cliffhangers at like the end of a book or whatnot. But thankfully, you only have to wait a week, not a year or 2 years for another book to be published, or 15 in some cases. Uh,
Liar.
but I do think this is going to be a better spot to stop for this story than to continue on and stop at like the 2/3 mark.
Fair enough.
Uh, so yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Well, there it is. Cliffhanger time. Uh, shit. Myth. Any shout outs?
So no specific shoutouts for this episode, which is all right. Just I do want to say a general thank you to everybody that listens, and even those that don't leave a text review. We see like those review numbers climb on Apple and Spotify and whatnot, and that still is really great to see. If you are perhaps a new listener or old and you like what you hear, and you haven't done so already, just the way to support us is leave a review on whatever your platform of choice is. If it has the ability to leave a text review and you feel strongly enough to do that, we love reading them. Otherwise, you can reach out to us at Myths and Stories on Twitter, or our YouTube, which is also Myths and Stories. And we're posting kind of archives of our previous episodes there, eventually going to catch up to the current ones. Or you can send us an email, mythsandstories@gmail.com, and you may see yourself as a future shout out.
Yeah. Well, I've got a very specific thing. Well, I guess not specific. But my thank you tonight is to the divinity bitch of every Fireteam member. Of every Fireteam group out there has one divinity bitch. You know who you are. You're the unsung hero of the group. Everyone bitches that you're not going to use it, and then when you use it, they bitch until you do use it, and you are always the one to use it, and nobody else will ever use it because they're like, I want to do damage, I want to see my numbers big, but they know they can't do it without you. We know you're typically a well warlock. You don't want to be a well warlock. We know you want to run arc. We get it. Trust me. I'm there. I'm there with you. I love my little arc buddies. You know how you get around it, right? You just delete this shit from your inventory and be like, can't access it anymore. I don't know what's wrong. My app's not working. I can't transfer it. I don't know what's wrong with DIM. That's how you do it. That's how you get out of it. But we see you. We see you. We thank you. I think we shuffled ours off to a Titan.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I also vehemently refuse to run well 90% of the time.
That's how I've gotten away with it. I'm just like, look, Arc Souls, look how much damage you're doing. Neat, isn't it? Cool, we're keeping Arc Souls. You're going to get them and you're going to like them. All right. Anything else, Beth?
That's it.
All righty. Well, then from all of us lore daddies to all of you guardians out there, we'll see you next time.
You found your people. Guardians do love their myths and stories.